Hello and welcome. I'm Tony Kearney, TV Director, producer, former actor and BBC Radio Scotland presenter. And this is my new podcast, Tony's Talkshop. Working in TV and radio, I am in the very privileged position of getting to meet and interview so many super interesting people. I adore chatting to intriguing characters, finding out all about their lives, what drives them, what challenges they have faced, and how they stay focused on achieving their goals. In this first season of Tony's Talkshop, we're going to be chatting to people who work in the entertainment industry, both in front of and behind the cameras and audience. It can be a tough gig navigating one's way through this industry. I should know I've been doing it for over 30 years. The rewards, however, are tenfold. And if you have an outlet for your creative juices and can make a living from it at the same time, then you have really hit the jackpot. For our very first podcast in this series, I had a fantastic chat with a Latin dancing icon and choreographer who has entertained us with her backbending salsas and sizzling hot sambas since the moment she graced our television screens here in the UK with the light entertainment TV juggernaut that is Strictly Come Dancing. Miami, Florida native Janette Manrara first joined Strictly in 2013 and has gone on to become an integral, glamorous, supremely talented part of this ratings-winning show. Janette and I talked about her family background, her Cuban roots, how she combined crunching numbers as a bank teller whilst continuing her dance training in ballroom, ballet, jazz, hip-hop, and, of course, salsa. Hard work paid off with success, and she talks about eventually joining the cast of Strictly and meeting the love of her life, fellow professional dancer Aljaž Skorjanic. Janette really has a passion for her craft, but what's more, you couldn't meet a nicer, more down-to-earth person. This is Tony's Talkshop with dancer and choreographer Janette Manrara. Hello, Janette.
Hi, Tony. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Very good.
Thank you so much for doing this.
No, my pleasure. I'm really excited to talk about anything and everything.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, I'll close this door. Thank you so much, Rowan. That's just our production assistant pressing record. And are you okay to keep picture on? It's an audio podcast, but it's nice to see you and
of course
keep eye contact. Okay, fantastic. I know you've got a busy day ahead, Janette, so will we jump in and just
go on.
Start recording? Okay. So, Janette, thanks again for agreeing to chat with me on Salsas Sounds. We're massive fans of yours. We love your work ethic, your passion for dance, your down-to-earth personality, and of course that you've got a Latina background as well. It's wonderful. So we know you here in the UK, of course, from BBC Strictly, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But I wanted to talk about your early days, Janette, going back to Miami, Florida. Tell me about your family. Is dancing in your blood?
It really is, I have to say, Tony. I always say that I basically started dancing as soon as I was able to start walking, because one of the first steps that I ever did was dancing on my dad's feet, when he was like holding on to me with dancing at a family party. I think because, my family's Cuban. My entire family's Cuban, really. I was the first one that was born in the USA, and the whole family. They came over in the early 1980, I think it was, when they arrived in Miami. Okay. And it was kind of crazy because my mom and my dad were both so young when they met. They met when they were 12 years old, as kids running around on the beach in Cuba.
Wow, and childhood sweethearts.
I know. And their families kind of just, went into very different ways to get into the USA. Obviously, because of communism in Cuba, they couldn't just get a visa to come to the USA. So my mom went through Costa Rica and my dad went through Madrid. And then my dad went to New York, and then they both met in Miami when they were like 16 years old. So their love story is pretty epic. I have a lot to live up to with Aljaž now.
I'm sure you will. What a fabulous background.
The whole family danced, and I think they were just so happy to, kind of finally have their freedom and be in the USA. And, then I was born, and I was kind of the life of the party because I was the baby in the family. That was the first American. So yeah, I think dancing and, that Cuban blood was never going to leave my body.
Oh, that's fabulous. Have you got many siblings?
I've got a younger brother whose name is Alejandro. Sounds very cool, like the Lady Gaga song. And my sister, whose name is Leslie Marie.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, fabulous Cuban background. I'm wondering then if that's influenced your own dance style. I mean, you're an incredible all-round dancer. But, Janette, I have to say, when you dance salsa, the world stops. All eyes are on you. It's amazing.
Do. I think the salsa is my favorite to dance on Strictly. Not only because it's such a fun music normally, but because there's no rules really. You can kind of do lifts. You can dance side by side. The knees are bent. You can get the shoulders down. I think when celebs get salsa, most of them, not all of them, but most of them get really excited because there's a bit of freedom in doing the salsa. And that's what kind of Cuban salsa is really. It's so free. I mean, my great grandparents danced it, so it's something that like the whole family just did. So for me to fall into that realm of dancing salsa and now doing it on the level of Strictly Come Dancing, that's like the proudest moment of my family is when they watch me do a salsa on Strictly, like she's bringing Cuba to the UK.
Yeah. And talking about Cuban salsa, because I've read a little about salsa rueda de casino.
Sí, muy bien, muy bien.
Sí. Y, I believe that's what they call it in Cuba, around in a circle, constantly changing partners. So
that's called la rueda.
La rueda. Cuéntame todo. So is Cuban salsa different from other versions of salsa?
Well, Cubans, we dance casino salsa, and one of our favorite things to do is la rueda, which means the wheel. That's what it stands for. And if you've seen what it looks like, it's basically a wheel where the men are all on the outside and the women are on the inside, and they just go literally swapping around partners constantly in a circle. And there's different names for different steps. You kind of have to study it a little bit if you want to do like a proper rueda. But yeah, I think that's what I grew up dancing. So I try and bring a bit of that to Strictly. But there's different styles. There's like the New York, there's the dancing on one or on two, lots of different styles of salsa. But my personal favorite, obviously, is the Cuban casino.
Yeah, fabulous. And would you like, we're talking about the circle and the dance, would you like to circle back one day and maybe go to Cuba and kind of look at the roots of salsa, the bailes afroamericanos, son, casino, and just
well, Tony, you did your research.
I love all this stuff. I love it.
I love it. Do you know what? I feel like you hit a really nice nerve there. I was born in the USA, but my first language that I spoke was Spanish, and I actually had to learn English in school because my entire family was Cuban. So my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, all my older cousins, I met 6 of my great grandparents. We have 8 great grandparents, and I met 6 of them. And all I ever hear is the story, and my great grandmother, she smoked a Cuban cigar every single day of her life until the day she passed. So it's kind of like when you hear all these stories of where your great grandparents grew up and where they came from and their stories, and then your grandparents' stories, and then your own parents and your aunts and uncles' stories, and the beach is where we met, or this is the bar we used to go to for this, or I used to go to the supermarket here. I feel really kind of almost sad that I've never had the opportunity to set foot on kind of the ground where my culture really is from. And then ultimately the music, the Cuban music and Cuban artists are some of my favorite. We've got Gloria Estefan is like the biggest one, but there's Albita, there's Los Bambang. There's this album that I listen to almost religiously called the Buena Vista Social Club, which is an amazing CD that they recorded there live in this Cuban jazz club with proper Cuban jazz. So when you hear all these like stories of your own family, the way that the music is so intertwined with the culture and how they grew up themselves, I feel like it's such a part of me. It's such a part of who I am as a person. And to never have been able to set foot there, it makes me really, really sad. So I keep saying that the day that I get to finally step on that ground and kind of see the country and see the culture there in person that I know is my culture, my family's culture for the first time, it's going to be very emotional. So I can't wait for that day to come, because I just think the Cuban culture is so beautiful. Every single person that comes back from Cuba, that goes to visit, that knows that I'm Cuban, says, Janette, the people, everyone is smiling. Everyone is just dancing. The life there is so exciting. And the people are just so happy. And it's all about family and good Cuban food and good Cuban music. So, I'm crossing my fingers that I can go back. And I feel like Janette will become whole once that moment happens, because then I'll have experienced my actual background, my actual culture, everything that I grew up listening to. And I can only imagine what Cuba's like. And I watch it in documentaries and videos, but to finally go there will be quite a special day.
The circle will be complete.
Yes, I hope so. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. Entonces, hablaba el español en casa con tus padres.
Sí, yo hablo español muy bien y tú también, Tony, hablas el español muy bien.
No, he olvidado mucho. Viví en Madrid hace 15 años y mi novio y yo tenemos un piso en Málaga. Cortamos esta parte del podcast.
Muy
Pero
bien,
bueno.
hablas español muy lindo. Pero el español cubano...
¿Qué va?
Sí,
es diferente.
Cuban Spanish, we always speak like we've got a potato in our mouth. Because the words are a little bit heavier. They're like, ¿cómo estás, Tony? ¿Tú estás bien hoy? ¿La estás pasando bien ahí en la UK?
I love it. It's beautiful. Do you get to speak much Spanish with the cast and Strictly?
Well, we've got Karen, who's from Venezuela.
Course,
we speak Spanish. And then Gorka, who's from Spain.
Claro
so me, Karen, and Gorka, we've got this Latino connection between the three of us. When we have any downtime, me and Gorka and Karen would love to go dance salsa. It just kind of brings us back to those like Latin, roots, where you just go to a family dance party and you just dance salsa all night,
Oh, fabulous.
Aunts and uncles and friends and stuff.
Oh, that's wonderful. I totally agree with you about the Cuban people. I have friends here in Glasgow who've gone back and forward to the film festival and stuff, and I've met Cubans come here, and muy buena gente. Beautiful people.
Yes.
Beautiful people. So, Janette, back to your dance career. You started performing musical theatre at the age of 12, but I believe you didn't start formal dance training until you were 19. So is that late in dance terms?
Yeah, it is quite late. But I think, as I said, because I've been dancing since I could walk, basically, I had no choice in my family, the Cuban rhythms and culture. But I think dancing was always a part of my life, no matter what. But I normally dance salsa. And then I was always quite outspoken, and I was always putting on shows for my family. And at Christmas, I would decorate the living room with all my younger cousins, and we'd do a play for the family on Christmas. So I was always quite artistic, and it existed in my family as well, because my dad is a beautiful singer, and my mom actually won gold medals in Cuba for synchronized swimming.
Wow.
And she did gymnastics. So I think the arts was always kind of in the family, and then not to mention just the Cuban music and Cuban culture. But so when I was 12, they put me in this musical theater program that was connected to a TV show called Sábado Gigante, Giant Saturday. That's what it means.
Okay.
And it was kind of this 4-hour variety show where they had just a bit of everything. But it's one of the biggest, longest running TV shows, I think, in TV history, out of all the shows in the world or something like that. Anyway, so the TV show had a segment where kids can come in and do a bit of musical theater performance, where we'd sit down and talk with the host about adult subjects, just as a funny segment. And then we'd do a little performance, singing, dancing, and acting. So that's how musical theater came into my realm. It was actually through television.
Okay.
And then we'd obviously take those musicals and we'd put plays on and put them on in the different conventions or stuff around the city of Miami. But then that program actually shut down. And I was 18 at that point. I wasn't a kid anymore. I still look like I was 12 though, so that was to my benefit. And so when the program shut down, the gentleman that ran kind of the dance aspect, he was the choreographer of all of the dance sequences we would do in the musical theater program. He opened up his own dance school. His name is Manuel Castro. Him and his wife, Lori Castro. And they opened up Dance Town, which is where I started really my formal dance training, because he said to me, you've got something, you can really, really dance. And he said, you can sing and you can act, but you can really dance. And I thought he was mad. I was like, I am 18 years old. This is insane. But he said, no, you've got to give it a go. Trust me on this one. So I did. My mom and dad were dreamers. I mean, it's because they're so artistic themselves. And, for them leaving the communism of Cuba to come to the freedom of the USA, to them, it was all about chasing my dream. Just do what you were born to do and live it and love it and go for it. So they were my number one supporters in making that decision. But at the same time, I had a job at a bank and I was studying uni. I was studying at uni financing. So
yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. That's so kind of rare, isn't it?
It was pretty bizarre.
Random.
I think my parents were very follow your dreams. I was a little bit more panicky. I was like, I need to have a backup plan if dancing doesn't go well for me. And I always loved numbers. I was really book smart in school. I got a full scholarship to university. So I didn't have to pay for uni at all.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I had a bit of a brain as well, which is good. So I went to uni and studied finance, but at the same time, I needed to get a job because I was 18. My parents had my brother and my sister. We were also living with my grandparents. So the financial situation at home was always a bit tough. So I had to kind of do my part to help once I turned 18. So I started working full time, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday at a bank, and studying at the uni about 3 times a week. And then every single other day, including Sundays, I was in the dance studio, like just taking as many classes as I could: ballet, jazz, hip hop, ballroom, flamenco. I mean, I was in there every single day since I was 18. And then, yeah, I mean, that kind of snowballed into where I am now.
That's incredible story. So the bank was kind of, you were there, but you were thinking of the next dance step. You were there, it was a means to an end.
I was literally thinking, I love that. I was thinking of the next dance step, exactly. And it was funny because I talk about this a lot whenever I do any kind of chats and podcasts. I feel like there was always a dream that I had. And because I had the support of my parents and the backing of my dance teacher as well, I didn't know what that dream was. When I was 19 or 18, I didn't know of Strictly Come Dancing. Dancing with the Stars wasn't even really a thing at that time either. So I loved television. I had grown up in television as a kid, working in television. But I loved to dance and I loved to perform. I just didn't know to what aspect that was going to kind of take over my life. But I always had this gut feeling that there was something out there. So even when I was at the desk at my kiosk, or my little cubicle, punching in the numbers and stuff, or at the class, at uni, I just had a feeling, this gut feeling that, this isn't it. This is not going to be the one. I'm going to keep going in the other direction. Yeah. And I was 23 years old when I did my first ever dance solo. I mean, you do your first dance solo sometimes when you're 5, depending on how early you start. So for me to do my first dance solo when I was 23, a lot of the parents of the other kids were looking at me thinking, she's mad. What is she doing? Like, you're 23 years old, stick to banking. You're getting a degree in finance. But, I got a lot of funny faces, a lot of like funny looks. I got told no a lot from many different kind of things, just because I was older in entering this field. But I didn't give up. I never gave up on this kind of dream or gut feeling. I was like, something's got to give one way or another. This can't be for nothing, because I feel it. And my dance teacher believes in me. And my family believes in me. And through many, many hardships financially, because I had to pay for my own classes. I had to pay for my sister's dance classes. Because again, like my family were, immigrants, and they were trying to make a living in the USA. And I had to pitch in to help. And my sister really wanted to dance at that time. She was very little. My parents couldn't afford to put her in the dance program. So I used to teach at the dance school and not be paid to pay for her classes. So it was all quite like my life revolved around work.
Yeah, yeah. But I love that. I love that you listened to your instinct, because a lot of people could have taken the kind of comfort, secure route. I'll stay with the bank. That's a hobby and I'll get my career, marry well, whatever. But you listened to your instinct and you took a risk. I took a big risk when I auditioned for So You Think You Can Dance, which I auditioned twice. A few people don't know that. The first year I auditioned for season 4 and I got all the way to the final round and my eyes were gleaming with joy thinking I've got this. And then I didn't get it. So I was really disheartened and sad. And at this point, I think I must have been 22, 23 by then. And then when the show came back around, the producer, his name is Jeff Thacker, who I have to give so much credit to for all the success that I've had in my career. He called me and he said, look, I'm coming back to Miami to audition for the show. I know last year it didn't go your way, but please, we'd love for you to audition again. And I remember thinking, I mean, if the producer is calling me, why not? You know, what's the worst that can happen? They tell me no again. Maybe this time it'll be a yes, you know? So I went back and auditioned, and the second time around, I actually did get the show. Yeah. And it was my first time flying to Los Angeles. The only other part I had been at that point in my life was New York for like 2 days with my aunt and uncle. But before that, I had never left Miami. I'd never even really been on an airplane. So to travel the distance to LA and then move to LA and then do this huge dance show in LA. I mean, I was already in that case. I thought that was it. This is my dream come true. Little did I know everything else that was going to come thereafter.
But at that point, I was just living my best life, as they say. Like, Mom, Dad, I did it. I'm in LA dancing on a TV show. And the show went fantastically well. I did really, really good. And then they invited me to join the tour. And we did a 3-month tour of the USA with the show. So that was, again, like just bizarre to think that, you know, I remember it'd be coming back to my hometown, Miami, on the tour. And we had the American Airlines Arena, which is our big arena where we do shows and all the big concerts take place there. And we were driving past it with my family when I was there to do the show. And my face just popped up huge on the arena. And I just started crying my eyes out. My mom started crying. You know, it was that moment of like, oh my gosh, Janette, you did it. Like, this little Cuban girl from this small town in Miami, like her face is on this massive arena. It was such a pinch myself moment, you know.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
And it was just kind of like the beginning of this snowball, because at that point when the concert finished, speaking of instincts and going with your gut, when the tour finished, when the So You Think You Can Dance tour finished, I still had my job waiting for me at the bank. And they said, we want you back. You're very good. And they kept moving me up the ranks in like what I was doing. And I had insurance, I had a retirement plan, I had everything sorted. But I don't know, my gut again said, take all the funds that you've made on tour. I saved all my money, and go to LA and just go for it and just see what happens if you move to LA and audition. And, you know, that was the scariest decision, to let go of that steady job, you know, the insurance, the retirement plan, everything, to take all these savings that I made and just move to LA to just see what happens, you know. But I had to do it, right?
Of course, you've got to listen.
Live your life with those what ifs.
You have to trust the instincts in this industry so much. I mean, you've talked about that beautifully. What a fabulous picture you've painted for us, and the indelible image of you coming home. I've seen your audition tapes of So You Think You Can Dance, and you wowed the judges. I mean, wow, these tricks.
Did you see my highlights?
Yeah, I loved them. You were rocking these highlights. They were great. But I wanted to talk to you kind of a bit of a kindred spirit. I'm a former actor. I've worked in TV since I was 16. It's all I know, really. But I never got used to the audition process. I kind of hated it. And I'm wondering, how are you with auditions? You know, when you were dancing professionally, auditions kind of never stopped. Did you manage to channel the nerves into positive energy? How do you do that?
I mean, I'm with you with that. I hated auditions. I am not really a competitive person at all. I think I'm very competitive with myself, and I'm really hard on myself. But I take so much inspiration from watching other people that are better than me, or bring a different kind of aspect into the arts in front of me. I watch and I kind of become a sponge more than I try and do better than, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So when I moved to LA, that was actually one of the toughest times of my life, because LA can be a really hard city to live in, you know. And at that point, because I didn't have a job, I just, like I said, I had all this funds saved, and I just put down a deposit on a flat, and I just moved over there.
Wow.
And then the process of auditioning began. And every single round, I would make it to the final round. But because I'm short and because I'm Latina, you know, it wasn't always necessarily what they were looking for the different auditions that I was going for. And that was really soul destroying, you know, because I had just come from this whirlwind of a dream. I had my eyes wide open, as they would say, and my dreams were big. And, you know, and then you come to LA and all of a sudden, boom, the reality of the no's really start hitting. And because I didn't want it, I wasn't the girl that was like shoving shoulders and pushing the other girls out of my way to showcase myself. It was really, really hard for me to survive the audition process. But in saying that, my mom and my dad, they always telling me that, you know, one way or another, if you stick to it, something is going to come out of it. Even financially, you know, I would see my bank account going lower and lower and lower. And it got to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even really buy food because I need to save that to pay the rent. And it was really tough, you know, and then getting the no's when you went to the auditions all the time. And my mother and my father just said, you know, the universe has really funny ways of just making things happen at the right time. And you just have to trust it. Don't give up and just keep working hard. Keep going to those dance classes. Keep yourself training. Keep going to the auditions. One day something is going to happen. and it's going to be okay. You just have to trust the universe.
Oh my God, I love your parents. I love your parents.
It was really hard to trust, Tony. I'm not going to lie. But then eventually the job that came around, they wanted exactly me. They wanted someone that was short, that looked a bit Latina, that looked like she was almost a high school kid, which is what I looked like basically then. And it was to work on Glee, which was this TV show that I'm sure you've seen or heard of it. It's a big musical
big time. Yeah.
And I worked on Glee from the whole first season, the whole second season, and they loved me for exactly what I had to bring to the table. And that was when I finally kind of regained my confidence, and I believed in this kind of thought process that the right job will come. You just have to keep trying, keep knocking on all those doors, and eventually one of them is going to open and you're going to be able to walk through it, and then you'll go into the next chapter of your life.
Exactly. We can say that in so many aspects in life. For the BBC show I interviewed a woman who'd climbed Everest. She's a young girl in her 20s, and she said, I got 300 rejections for sponsorship, and I just kept doing it. So I love what you're saying. That's really inspirational. So you did Glee. I know you danced, principal dancer with Jennifer Lopez.
Yes.
And, the show Burn the Floor, you toured with that. So, I mean, fabulous. This is just like these are big shows. These are iconic names. At any point during this year, sort of saying, wow, I've made it, I'm here? Or is Janette still focused? No, there's more. There's another chapter.
Well, Tony, there's always another chapter. It's a never-ending story, right?
True.
To be honest with you, I think one of the most exciting moments in my life, career-wise, was the day that I did the first show on So You Think You Could Dance. I'm never going to forget, because it was such a moment for me. But I think it was, I know it sounds silly because it's just a TV show, but it meant so much to me. Mm-hmm. It was doing the final with Harvey this last year on Strictly.
Wonderful.
Because there's a little bit of a backstory with this one singular sensation. It was the American Smooth that we did, where we were both wearing these gold sequin tuxes.
Yep, I remember it. We loved it.
Yeah. Now, One Singular Sensation is a song that I first learned when I was about 12 or 13 years old in the musical theater program. And it was one of the first musicals that I kind of studied and watched and danced to and sang as a kid. Mm-hmm. And then when I did So You Think You Can Dance, I also did it on So You Think You Can Dance. Me and Michael's choreographed like a very quirky contemporary version of One Singular Sensation. And then a couple years later on Strictly Come Dancing, on the actual night of my birthday in the Blackpool Tower, because my birthday always falls on Blackpool week during Strictly. Okay. We were at the Blackpool Tower, and on the night of my birthday, we performed One Singular Sensation yet again with all the celebrities and Strictly dancers, professional dancers. And then when this moment came that Harvey and I were in the final, I just felt this kind of epiphany of like, oh my gosh, my life is on track. This song keeps coming back to me at crucial points in my career. When I was a child starting out in musical theater, when I did So You Think You Can Dance on this very special dance floor in Blackpool Tower on my birthday, and then on the final yet again with Harvey in this last series. And when I finally got into the final, this was my 8th year on Strictly. The dream was always to get to that final. So to finally get to the final and to perform that specific song, which it means so much to me emotionally because of all the different parts of my life and my career, it was such an aha moment where I went, oh my gosh, I'm on track. I don't know what the next chapter is. I know there's something else coming, who knows, but I'm working towards something else, and I'm going to keep dancing, and I'm going to keep learning, and I'm going to keep expanding my book.
Yeah. So that was a planet.
Moment,
the planets were aligning in that moment for you.
I think so. Mm-hmm. I'm very spiritual. I really believe in positive energies. And I think that things happen at the right time and for the right reasons. And when we did that dance in the finale with Harvey, it was just so special to me because of all this that I was saying. And then also I just was so proud of Harvey. Like, you bring all of that as well into the picture.
You guys were an amazing couple. We were rooting for you. We loved it. You've talked about Strictly. Can I circle back and say, 2013 you joined. How did it, for listeners here, how did it come about? How did the Strictly thing, did they come knocking on your door, or did you chase them? Or
no,
what can you tell me?
That's a really great story too, actually. We were doing Burn the Floor, which is the show that I first joined the cast when they were doing it for the first time in the West End. And that was in 2010, I believe. And then that tour that show went on a world tour and on a USA tour. And then it wound up back in the West End the second time around. And at that point, I was already dating Ali Ash. We had met on tour. We always say we met in the world tour. And so we had been dating already.
Okay.
And we were both, here in the West End doing the show. And I had heard of Strictly Come Dancing, obviously knew of Dancing with the Stars in the USA. And I had been offered to do Dancing with the Stars in the USA, but I couldn't do it because I was still under contract for Burn the Floor. So in my head, I thought after this contract is done, I will go back to LA and I will do Dancing with the Stars. But I really wanted to stay with Ali Ash, we wanted to make this work together, because if not, it would mean that I would be going to LA and he would either stay in Slovenia or be in the UK and would have to do the long distance thing. And so I remember the producers coming in. And because I never really competed in ballroom and Latin, I can dance it, but I learned it all through the tutelage of Jason Gilkison and Peter Roby. Jason Gilkison is now the creative director of Strictly Come Dancing, and he is a world-class champion of ballroom and Latin. So they kind of taught me all through the years that I was doing the show, and they gave me, if you ask any professional competitive dancer that how much it would be to have a 1-hour session with Jason and Peter every single day, they will tell you that it's priceless to get this kind of like lessons off of these giants of the dance world. And so I'd never competed. So I thought the producers are not going to really look at me because I don't have any titles and I've never competed on a proper dance floor when it comes to ballroom and Latin. So I was really rooting for Ali Ash, and I was hoping, crossing my fingers, that at least Ali Ash would get it. So when we got the phone call that they were interested in both of us, I was shocked, and over the moon happy, because I thought, oh my gosh, maybe if we both get it here, we can stay together. I don't have to go back to the USA. Our love story can continue and we can continue dancing. And so they called both of us in for the interview, and I was very honest with them, and when they asked me, well, what can you bring to the show? And I just said, well, I can bring storytelling, because I did musical theater my whole life. And I think dancing is not just something that you can actually really critique. There's no right or wrong for me. It's all about the story. It's art form. It's emotive. It's an expression of some sort. So I think that that's what I would like to bring to the table. Plus, hopefully, some great dancing if you have me. And I think they really liked that I came from this more musical theater background. They took a chance with me. They took a risk to see if it worked, to bring something different to Strictly. So when they called both Ali Ash and I to join the show together, to do it, not just to get the job myself, but then to also get the job with the love of my life, I was like, are you kidding me? So we always say that, Strictly for us is the Strictly blessing. You know how they always like a Strictly curse. For us, Strictly has been the biggest blessing of our lives. Because
that's wonderful.
9 years later, we're married now. We have a home in London. And I'm here talking with you, Tony, and it's
fabulous.
It's just the most incredible story, really. Yeah,
that's wonderful. And to be able to work with your husband, your partner, doing what you love, the creative juices, be paid to do it. That's fabulous. That's a great place to be.
Exactly. And the nice thing about doing a show like Strictly is that you get to do all of it, really. You get to choreograph, you get to teach, you get to dance, you get to meet some because obviously you dance and work with your partner, your celebrity partner, but you also meet all of the other celebrities. So I've met some incredible people through the last couple of years on Strictly from all walks of life. That is so, I would have never met in any other job. So there's so many wonderful, wonderful things about being a professional on Strictly that still to this day, I pinch myself and I count my blessings that I'm a part of the show.
You've had some great characters from Julie in the beginning down to Harvey, you mentioned. Do you have any favorites or do you love them all? You bring the best out of them all. You're such a good teacher.
To be honest with you, Tony, I can't have a favorite. I just can't, because I've literally fallen in love with all of them for different reasons and in different ways. Julian McDonald was my first ever partner on the show. And when I got married with Ali Ash, he made and designed my wedding dress as a gift to me for my wedding.
Wonderful.
So, that just goes to show you the extent of how close I get with all my partners. Peter Andre and I still talk, Jake Wood, I still talk with Ashton, I still talk with, all of them, Melvin, Harvey, Ranj and I are rehearsing today. That's where I'm running off to after this chat. We're rehearsing today because I'm doing a show with him in the West End to raise funds for Mad Trust, which is a really big charity. So we're singing and dancing together.
Oh,
so I think I've been very, very lucky with my partners that we've maintained a really close friendship. And sorry, my alarm keeps going off.
Don't worry, that's wonderful. I mean, you mentioned Jake Wood there. We have to mention that salsa that you guys did, your backbending salsa.
Yes.
Whoa, that was incredible.
I remember teaching that one to Jake, and he was a bit like, he's so cool, Jake. You know, he's one of the coolest guys I have ever met. Nothing really fazed him. He wasn't nervous. He said yes to anything I asked him to do. He was, he just gave everything his 150%. And I remember teaching him the steps thinking, I don't know if he's going to be able to do this. And because he did it so good and so easily, I thought, I'm going to teach it a little bit harder. I'm going to make it a little bit harder. I'm going to make it a little bit harder. And by the end, it was one of the most epic kind of sequence of lifts and tricks.
Oh, Janette, it was off the scale. It was off the scale. It's just these indelible images and him so cool and you leaning back and oh my goodness, it was incredible, incredible. Janette, you mentioned your wonderful husband, the Slovenian professional dancer, Strictly co-star Aljaž Skorjanic. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Skorjanic is the top one.
Skorjanic. Okay.
You have to feel like you have to go Skorjanic.
Skorjanic.
Pretty good, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. So, you knew each other beforehand. You got the job together. What's it like working with your husband then?
You know what? It's really, really nice. I know it sounds a bit like cheesy, but dancing, like, it's so emotive and it's about expression and it's about feelings. We're kind of telling a story through movement. And every time that I dance with Aljaž, it just feels... It kind of feels like it's just me and him in this world for that instance, even if there's many people watching us on stage or watching us on television. For that instance, it's almost going like into this strange meditative state where I forget where I am. I forget even almost who I am. I just see us and I just feel us. And it's a feeling that I really can't put into words how special that is to be able to do it with him. And not just when we dance together, but also the stresses and the pressure of doing Strictly Come Dancing, guiding a celebrity, creating the routines, choreographing, dealing with the judges' comments, things like that. To have him by my side and also be going through the same exact thing makes it so nice because we can really come home and talk about it and be each other's support and be each other's kind of like rock when times get really tough or get really exhausted or, I push him and then he pushes me. And we're very different dancers. So I feel like when we come together, especially when we choreograph together, it's a really nice fusion of movement that we bring together to the table. So, I mean, it's the biggest blessing really to be able to do it with him.
And that's wonderful. That's so interesting. You're saying you're very different dancers. Janette, we're really nearly done. This is fantastic. I'd like to sort of get your thoughts and knowledge on, or you kind of, what's your feeling on having longevity in this entertainment industry? What is the secret to success and lasting?
This is a word that Tony, I feel like you're in my head. This is a word that matters so much to me. I think because my career kicked off so late, I started dancing so late. And, I did have had some amazing opportunities along the way to this day. But because I was a late bloomer in the dance world professionally, I want this to last for as long as possible. I think a lot of people get to my age. If they've been dancing since they were 3 or 4 and 5, I'm going to be 38 now in November, and I'm very proud of that.
You look amazing on it. You look fantastic.
So I feel like the longevity aspect is so important to me because I want to be able to be dancing or telling stories, as long as I possibly can. So I look after my body a lot. I've been doing a lot of internal work in this last year as well because I've not been dancing, and dancing to me was always my escapism. It was my kind of, if I was having a rough day, it disappeared the moment that I walked into a rehearsal studio and I started dancing. So, I feel more than ever now, especially now, turning 38 soon, I want my career to last as long as possible. So I think there's no secret here. The only thing that I kind of live my life by is to really be present and have the utmost gratitude for all the jobs and all the opportunities that come my way. I feel that gratitude is a word that's been thrown around a lot lately, and it's talked a lot in well-being. I'm studying well-being at the moment. I'll have a certification on well-being by the end of hopefully next week, fingers crossed. And
fantastic.
This conversation of having gratitude and being present and being mindful of all the different moments in your life, whether that's in your career or through family and friends and loved ones, I think is the secret to really keeping this passion alive and keeping this longevity and keeping this desire to continue doing this. Because if you're present and mindful of a moment or a feeling, or I mean, every single year without fail, when I dance on that ballroom floor on Strictly on that we call it the golden ballroom floor, I take a second and I just like take it in, and taking it all in keeps me motivated, keeps me excited about it, keeps me happy about it. Because it's like any job, there's always going to be something that you're going to be like, oh, this, or oh my gosh, that, or that's frustrating. Oh my gosh, I wish that was different, right? Or, it's like normal, like any job. But when you take that little second to just appreciate how blessed and lucky we are to do the things that we do, no matter how big or small they are, the longevity becomes that much easier because you're going to want to keep doing it.
That's a fabulous answer. I love all of that. I'm with you on the mindfulness. And I think that comes across in your work ethic. I think that channels into your professionalism, which is so impressive. Do you think, Janette, that's something that you can learn, or are you born with that? Or is that kind of, you've taken us through the whole story arc of Cuba, the background, the immigrants, the American dream. Is that fueling everything then? And
I think I would say so. Yeah. I think my parents, you said yourself, I wish I had.
No, they sound amazing.
That my parents really they raised me to be humbled and appreciative for the things we do have because they had so little. And then, now they're very blessed. They've got a gorgeous home in Miami with a pool. My mom can do synchronized swimming every day now, and she still does it every day. But, I think they kind of raised me with this mentality to stay humbled, work hard, but live your best life, dream big. And eventually, as they always said to me, if you are passionate about something and you work hard towards something and you appreciate all those little wins along the way, the life is going to be good one way or another.
Yeah, you said it. So, Janette, la última pregunta.
La última pregunta.
The last question. What's on the distant horizon for successful dancer and choreographer Janette Manrara? Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
I have big dreams, Tony. I don't stop. There's always a next chapter.
Yeah, I love it.
I still have a couple boxes I'd like to tick. I'd love to do a West End musical. I haven't done that yet. I've performed in the West End. Aliash and I have been very lucky to have performed in the Palladium for the last 4 or 5 years with our tour, remembering the Oscars, which is coming up again next year. And that was a tick. I mean, to dance in the Palladium, even now when we did it this last tour that we did in 2019, I still can't believe it was that long ago. Anyway, when we did it in 2019 and we were standing in the Palladium, we still cry at the end of the show because it's such a special venue. But I would love to do a West End show and just do a proper musical theater. Just feel like it'll tie it all back into what I was doing when I was a kid. So that's definitely one big dream that I'd love to achieve. And then I really enjoy conversation and people. And I think my story, my background and the kind of hardships that I went through and also all the successes that I went through, I want to share that with people as much as I can and help people better themselves, help people find themselves, help people be happy and discover, learn about themselves. So I think it's so important. So I've really fallen in love with this concept of well-being. And if I can bring that to the table on a presenting capacity, I'd love to do daytime television. So I can talk about all these things that I've been learning through well-being and just bring smiles to people's faces and share great stories and inspire others. I think conversation is so important. Talking and communicating with one another and listening to each other's stories and sharing each other's stories can just help us grow as individuals so much. So that's another one that I hopefully, fingers crossed, will continue ticking along the way in one way or another. Yeah,
100%. I love it. Well, Janette, we love your energy. You've got a wonderful energy, a wonderful light. Thank you so much for shining that light on this podcast today. I've loved chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Tony. Muchas gracias por tenerme en tu programa.
Muchas gracias a usted, cariño mío. Hasta la próxima.
Wow.
Thanks again to Janette Manrara for being my first guest on Tony's Talkshop. A superb beginning and the first of many. I know how busy Janette is right now, so I really appreciated her giving me so much of her time. A big thanks to all of you for listening. My Talkshop is well and truly open now and ready for business, so watch this space. You'll soon be able to find future episodes on Acast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks to Andy Lum for editing and mixing this episode. This podcast was produced by Salsas Sounds. From me, Tony Kearney. Bye for now.